session, which is a celebration of fiction writing in India. And I want to especially celebrate all the authors who submitted their stories to us for the Deodar Prize. So just a little bit about the prize. The Deodar Prize is an attempt to expand the opportunities for creative expression in India. And it's named after the Deodar tree, which is the Himalayan cedar, and that is a native species of trees in India. It's also the official tree of the state of Himachal Pradesh, which is where I was born. So in this year's edition, we are awarding authors for writing stories in the category of English short fiction. And why English, why short, why fiction? So I want to maybe look at the English question first. And I've had this relationship with English and writing, which I think many other Indian authors may have had as well, which is that I think we are a very interesting alloy because we have grown up reading a lot of English literature that comes from the Anglosphere. A lot of our exposure is from that world. But our cultural imagination is steeped in this country, which is multi-everything. I mean, I think our culture has invented a third eye just because there is so much to take in when you live in India. So I think there is this struggle for authenticity, which is how do I tell a story that feels real? How do I write in English when many of my characters are probably not actually going to be speaking in English? So how do I have a sense of self-assuredness in my voice? This was also something that we looked at when we were judging the stories. We were trying to see that, is there originality in the story? And can this story really have come out only of India? Could only an Indian writing in English have written something like this? So that was one sort of facet. But the other aspect we tried to balance authenticity and originality with was rigor. And that's sort of where the short part comes in. Because, I'm sure many of you have heard that quote. It's very famous. It's been attributed to so many people, including Mark Twain, to who all quotes are attributed. But it goes something like this, that I would have written, sorry for writing a long letter. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter one. So short form writing is actually really difficult because authors have to place every single word very carefully in order to tell a story in a very compelling way in a short amount of time. And I'm really happy that our winning authors who are here with us today have done just that. But finally, I'm just going to take a minute to talk a little bit about the fiction part. Why fiction? I mean, it may seem a bit obvious because we're at a literature festival, it's very well attended, clearly fiction's doing fine. But I think today the role of stories have gone beyond what it does for the individual reader. I interact with a lot of people in the social sector, and one of the biggest concerns for society today, which I think a lot of you might agree with, is polarization, right? This difficulty in being able to understand another person's point of view. And while many of the NGOs that we work with try to build curriculums, structured exercises, workbooks, and they try to build empathy in children and young adults, I want to sometimes say, can you also add a reading list? Just add some books to this and get people to read more fiction and more books, because anybody who spends time in the skin of flawed characters, anybody who reads about adventures and heartbreak and family dramas, and anyone who reads the beautifully told stories about the absolute mundane, that person will find it hard to put people in neat little tight boxes. So I feel today, I really believe that fiction has a social purpose. And the writers who write these stories really are doing something very important. They need oxygen, and it is my hope that the Deodar Prize can produce some of that oxygen. So thank you very much for joining us in applauding them and celebrating these authors. We have a wonderful panel of jury that has supported us in finding these authors and reading through their stories. I'd like to invite them on stage. Can I please have Rohan? Rohan is a screenwriter and also adjunct faculty at NYU Tisch. His most recent film was Khufia, right? Yes. On Netflix, yes. Thank you. Can I have Devika on stage? Devika has just released her latest book, which is Quarter Life, and it is absolutely excellent if you haven't read it. And can I call on stage Ajita, who's one of the most respected editors and publishers at Westland. So can we please sit together? I just want to take this chance to just maybe ask each one of you a little bit about what was your experience of judging the prize and just what kind of entries came in, etc.
Hello. Thank you, Natasha, for firstly giving me the opportunity to read these stories. I think I told you this earlier, but coming from an industry where we suffer from the burden of the economics of the box office and streaming minutes, which makes the lens of the stories you want to tell very myopic. To read these stories, coming from all parts of the country, coming from all ages, it really opened my eyes, and it really inspired me to see all the stories that can be told. It really helped me get out of that myopia that my industry sort of forces on me, and I feel I benefited more from the process of reading these stories than maybe these writers did as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Natasha, for getting this prize going. We had a meeting, before Natasha decided how to go about it, and I was really struck by the extreme seriousness of the endeavor, the kind of money, time, energy that Natasha and her team were going to invest in this, and finally the number of entries that came in has all been staggering. So I'm very proud to be a part of the inaugural, I hope, edition of this initiative. The stories that came in have been wonderful. I think it was really hard debating out of the last 5 or 6 which ones should be the runners-up and the winner. And I think the reason is that, I'm a writer myself, and it's sometimes very difficult to choose between stories that have very different aims. One might be very strong in ideas and sort of language is not what they're going for. With someone else, it's not about the plot or story, but just really inhabiting the interiority of a character. So it almost feels sad to have to compare or set these stories up in competition anyway. But I think one of the lovely things about the prize is just the mandate was very clear, and that the mandate here was not so much competing short stories, but rather discovering new voices, even though you can only have so many winners. And I think all of the 3 voices and the 20 on the short list are absolutely exceptional, and I can't wait to make the announcements. It's been a thoroughly, thoroughly rewarding exercise. So thank you, Natasha, and thank you to everyone at the Deodar Prize.
I actually have very little to add to that because, Devika said absolutely everything that I wanted to say. I think all 3 of us wanted to say. Thank you, Natasha. For steering this through so smoothly. And to all the writers who actually submitted their stories. We were amazed at the number of entries we actually got, and it was really heartening that so many people were thinking and writing and imagining. And it was clear that there was a need for an award like this. Like Devika said, very much we hope, this is the inaugural Deodar Prize and that there will be more and we'll discover more voices. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. But really, in the end, the winners are all of the authors who've written in and really trusted us and put themselves out there, because... without further ado, I'm going to sort of request Devika to announce our first runners-up. We have 3 categories of prizes. There is a winning prize and there are 2 runners-up. As all of us said, these are awards are what they are. It's hardly one better than the other. But nevertheless, we're going to kick this off, and I'd like for you to sort of announce and share a little bit about who won the runners-up.
Sure. Should I stand or... No, I feel we should stand for this. All right, so the Deodar Prize, the runners-up prize, goes to Samruddhi Ghodgaonkar for her story, Bats of Paradise. Set in Jalgaon, Bats of Paradise is the portrait of a single day in the life of a security guard who is called upon to dispel the bats roosting in the air conditioning unit of a wealthy man's house. What especially struck the jury was Samruddhi's voice, which is as attuned to the minute details of her characters' lives as it is really readable and propulsive. Quite hard to kind of do both of those at the same time. We were also struck by the authenticity of the piece and how it really captured the atmosphere of a small town in Maharashtra, a landscape that has not been explored that much in Indian writing in English. And as I mentioned, the Deodar Prize for me was a prize for discovering new voices. And so it gives me great pleasure to give this prize to the exceptional talent that is Samruddhi Gudgaonkar. I would like to now invite the author on stage to receive the award. Congratulations. Thank you. A little bit about Samruddhi. She's Samruddhi is an aspiring novelist, and very excited to hear that, and short story writer. Her stories and literary reviews have appeared in the Inklet magazine, Usawa Literary Review, the Bombay Literary Magazine, The Chakkar, and others. And she also has a monthly newsletter called Experiments in Fiction on Substack. I'm going to hand the mic over to her now. Would love to know a little bit about how the story came about and how you're feeling about the Deodar Prize.
Wow, I never expected. When I submitted this story, I never thought that it would get this far. And I have to thank the prize organizers, oh my God, the jury, for this incredible honor. And I wrote something. I wouldn't be here without my grandmas and my sisters' unwavering belief, my friends and family, who just told me to never give up writing because I used to be in a different field. And, but I really loved writing, so. Yeah. I'm also grateful for the bats that nested in my air conditioning unit and delivered this story on their wings. I'll now read an excerpt from The Bats of Paradise. You quickly crouch underneath the stool amidst an onslaught of chittering followed by gut-churning squeaks. The aperture's darkness rides. An orange-sized ball separates from the mass, swooping past you in the room. Through furious heartbeats, you laugh at the zooming subject, a young bat whose eyes flash red for a second in the light. Two more joined the escapee and whiz out of the room. An entire camp of bats must have nested in the walls opening outside after the air conditioning unit was installed. The escapee watches, omniscient, then dives towards you. Your feral shriek of terror wads it out of the room. Darkness gradually dissolves your vision in the aftermath. For a moment, you become a newborn bat, frozen, disoriented under the stool.
For the next, we have a second runners-up, and I wanted to invite Rohan to announce the second runners-up story.
Hey everyone. The second runner-up for the Deodar Prize is Ratul Ghosh for his story Ants. Ants is a deeply personal and brutally honest story about watching someone you fade away, watching someone you love fade away. The jury loved the writing, the honesty, the brutal honesty. It seemed like someone had lived through this and had the distance and the care to write a story like this. For me personally, who's seen my parents sort of fade. And in this year, I often found refuge and release in Ratul's story, and I would like to thank him for that. Can you come up, please? A little bit about Ratul. Ratul Ghosh spent most of his left brain life in the C-suite across boring conglomerates and clueless startups, creating presentations with no power and no point. But he loves the poets from Eliot to Bukowski, Ginsberg and Leonard Cohen to Vikram Seth, and the writers who mix the real and imaginary worlds like Pratchett, Gaiman, and Murakami. Give the mic to Ratul to read the next one.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rohan, for the flattering words. I think, for me, this journey started long back. I wrote a lot as a child, and while a lot of my writing was very fake and pompous, I think some of it was very bold. Now when I read some of it, it flew quite close to the sun. And over time, when I started getting older, I started working. I was yoked to the plow. I made money, I made a career, I made a family, and maybe a little music. But on the side, my writing became a lot more afraid, unsure, tentative. It would tiptoe around and not really say anything. And to make it worse, I was reading a lot. So I knew how bad it was. So I kind of stopped. And then in April this year, a lot changed. My dad was diagnosed with late-stage cancer. After a while, I stepped down from my work. I had time. And I saw, felt, and experienced a whole bunch of things which made me feel. And now I had something to say. And now I had to say it. And at that point, a close friend of mine, Ramsu, who's in the audience, he forwarded me a link to this. And almost like an omen. So I'm today very happy that the piece won something, but I'm happier that I wrote. And I'm really happy that you the prize. I want to read a small passage from the story, which talks about, after the onset of the disease, what happened. What I was less prepared for was the stalemate. I knew death more as the bullet that hits you when you're running from another, as the drug overdose, as the clot that blocks blood to the brain, as the heart that fails, like it almost did for Baba 4 years back. Or as the truck that rams the motorcyclist in the night on the wrong side at full speed with its headlights off. I was less prepared for the slow, by 1,000 cuts version. The kidney that stops working, the cancer that keeps returning, or the dementia that just worsens. Look, we aren't celebrating my daughter's birthday this year. I'll have to miss the office outing and another meeting, and then I'll step down from work. We'll all shift to Jaipur. It is all temporary. The cancer crept in insidious ways till it filled our lives. The house smelt of it, of medicines and disease, that dank urine in the carpet smell that Malays has, of rot and ailing dogs. My phone was full of reports, scans, and prescriptions. I was cleaning bedpans. The kid got shouted at more often. The house help left. The tap dripped. The garden was dry. The broken bolt never got fixed. Everyone was tired and on a short fuse. We lived under a black cloud that never parted and kept getting heavier. The parrots stopped coming by, or we didn't hear them anymore. Thank you. Yeah, I just, one more minute, I want to thank some people here. So Sanchita, my wife, Ira, my daughter in the front row, for your support. My friends Ramsu and Shruti for their feedback. Team Deodar for organizing this. And the jury for reading through all the stories, especially mine. And Bangalore Lit Fest and all of you for being here today. It means a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ratul. So we do have our final announcement, and I would love to invite Ajita to announce our winner of the Deodar Prize 2023.
So the inaugural Deodar Prize goes to Funeral for a Demon by Srividya Tadipalli. I hope I said your name right. Funeral for a Demon was a point of absolute convergence for the jury. Devika said of this story that it's beautiful and quietly empowering, and Rohan appreciated the confidence in the writing in this fun and fantastical story about caste and memory and liberation. Srivid uses the short story form to great effect, vividly invoking an alternate world within a tight narrative. Our congratulations, Srividya. I would now like to invite the author onto the stage. Srividya is a writer and educator based in Chennai. Her writing has appeared in the Aleph anthology, A Case of Indian Marvels, edited by David Deodar, and in Helter Skelter's anthology of new writing. Over to you, Srividya.
Thank you. Those are really lovely words. Thank you to the Deodar Prize. Thank you to the jury. I'm really glad such a space exists. I'm going to read an excerpt from my story. It's called Funeral for a Demon. Those attending the feast, regardless of how long they were traveling, merely had to tell their employers that Sarasu had died. Any further explanation was neither given nor sought. Though some employers grumbled and muttered under their breaths, Sarasu was feared widely enough by those of their classes and castes that no one complained. There was one poor soul who had either not heard or not heeded this unspoken warning. A moneylender, not poor by any definition other than with regard to the fate that awaited him, decided it was a good day to harass Ravi about money he owed. The moneylender arrived with his band of men outside Saras's house just as people began to sit down to eat. Conversations came to an end abruptly as people recognized the man who managed to make the worst periods of their lives somehow worse. He bellowed, "Ravi, you bastard, you have money to feed all these morons, but you don't have money to pay me back. Why don't you come here and we can arrange some entertainment for your guests, The air was thick with fear, and the moneylender reveled in it, not understanding whom the fear was for. Some of the older women tried to intervene, asking him to come back another day, but they were mocked and pushed around. Ravi hid inside his house with his furious wife. Papa couldn't believe her husband was allowing that arrogant man to threaten her family, while her mother-in-law's body lay less than 20 feet away. As Papa decided enough was enough and tore her way out of the house, violent coughs filled the air. The moneylender began to vomit, bile at first, then blood clots, looking soft as butter but blacker than the night. Papa reached the moneylender just as the coughing man's mouth opened wider and wider, held ajar now by two hands emerging from inside his body. The thugs who had accompanied him scattered in terror. The moneylender's jaw cracked, allowing it to open wide enough for a man with a sunken face to climb out. As the man stepped into the puddle of bile and blood, the moneylender fell to the ground, the skin around his throat sagging like a giant pelican's beak. The new man, covered in saliva and other body fluids, looked around him, taking in the place of his birth. He made his way slowly towards Sarasu as the crowd parted for him. On reaching her, he bowed and then removed the bedsheet covering her body, using it to cover himself as he walked away from the village gathering. Sasi and her co-sisters had always believed the rumors about Sarasu. During Sasi's wedding to Babu, the old priestess, who was actually her grand aunt, told her she was the luckiest woman in the world to be able to call an Ibui her mother-in-law. She and Papa stood together now, looking at the moneylender, both unsure about whether they felt anger, pity, or relief. His eyes were missing, as were his gums and teeth, and only black, gaping holes remained in their place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sripadya. So once again, a very hearty congratulations to all of the winners. A big shout out to all of the authors who didn't win but really ventured something by writing. And an open invitation to everybody here. If you have even a small story inside you, please start writing. We will be back next year for sure, so watch out for us at deodarprize.in. We're also on Instagram, and you can always reach us. Keep writing. Thank you so much.